While retirement is generally seen as a time of relaxation and self-focus, God calls us to love, serve, and help others for a lifetime. He has been preparing us for this retirement season literally our entire lives. In retirement, countless Christians enter a state of spiritual dormancy, not knowing how they are called to have an impact for God's kingdom. The Retirement Reformation seeks to encourage and empower the 50 million Christians approaching or in retirement to embrace the calling God has been preparing in them. When the world says it's time to stop, you can begin to have your greatest impact. Welcome to I Retire for Him, the mouthpiece of the Retirement Reformation, where our goal is to journey from retirement to reformation so you can say, I retire for Him.
Did you know that when you retire, your calling doesn't retire? Your calling is a lifetime calling, and if you're still around, God isn't done with you yet. I know you're fully aware of what you retired from, but what did you retire to? You've tuned into I Retire for Him, the voice and resource of the Retirement Reformation, an organization dedicated to you, the retiree who loves Jesus and wants purpose for all of your days, especially the ones ahead of you. Bruce Bruinsma joins us today as the founder of the Retirement Reformation. He's here to encourage and walk with you through retirement. And I'm your host, Jim Brangenberg. Check us out online at retirementreformation.org and on Facebook, Retirement Reformation. You know, we have a crisis in the foster care and adoption system in the United States of America. Too many kids need to be placed and not enough homes to place them. We have a surplus of people in the body of Christ who go to church every Sunday and who have homes that are perfect for these kids. What holds them back? Fear. The fear that having a foster child or adopting a child will just be too overwhelming for their existing family. But there's a solution. And we here at the Retirement Reformation and on the I Retire for Him podcast are super excited. We call this solution Wraparound Grandparenting. It's a solution that should exponentially accelerate the adoption of eligible kids and the placing of eligible kids in brand new foster homes across the country. Bruce Bruinsma joined us today to talk all about wraparound grandparenting. Bruce, welcome back to I Retire for Him.
Jim, it's good to be with you today. And as you indicated, we are excited about being able to talk about a topic which has such impact culturally and across the ages, from the foster child who is, 3 days old to the foster child that is 18 and is aging out, and all the issues in between. And the fact that God has led us to an approach, a solution that will make a huge difference in the lives of so many people and an impact on our culture for the church.
So before we get into wraparound grandparenting, I'm super excited about that. Let's just talk about the state of the foster care system in the United States of America.
Yeah, and in the U.S., there are about 400,000 round numbers, a little bit less than that, 400,000 children that are in the foster care system. And when we talk about foster care, we're also including adoption. So adoption and foster care. So caring for kids whose parents, for whatever the reason, and those reasons are from A through Z, are not able or willing to be able to care for them. And about 115,000 of that 400,000 are now are open to being into a foster home or to be adopted. So there's about 115,000 across the country. And it is, and the stories are just heart-wrenching. The stories are ones they say, well, how can we as the church body not respond to this? Part of it, I think, Jim, is the fact that we don't know the numbers and we don't know what the options and alternatives are. And so we're going to explore that in the conversations we're going to have. And hopefully there will be in our listening audience and those who they know that can point to these podcasts and say, hey, this is something that we ought to think about. This is something that we ought to address. And here is something that we can do about it, not just talk about it.
So what was amazing? So you and I partnered in an event in Pennsylvania back in October, beginning of October, and the statistics are really pretty simple. Kids in the foster care system, about one for every church in America. And so if one, but a lot of these kids are not in homes, they're in group homes because there's not enough individual homes for them. And out of all of those, if one family from every church in America went into the foster system, every kid in the foster system could actually have a home to be in. Not all those kids are eligible for adoption, but like you said, about a third of them are eligible for adoption. But again, there's a lot of stuff that goes into adopting a child. What is keeping people, what do you think, Bruce? What's keeping people back? What's giving them hesitation about getting involved in the foster care system or even adopting? I mean, it's two different things. Fostering is one thing, adopting is a lifelong thing. What do you think is holding people back?
Well, you mentioned fear. And of course, I think part of fear is when we know that there's a problem, but we don't understand it. We don't know, and we're not sure how we relate to it. And we say, well, that's somebody else, and you're concerned. So we have two issues. Number one, we have the families that God has appointed that have the capacity to step up and be foster parents or adopting parents. But what we find, particularly in the fostering parent arena, is that those foster parents, after they begin the process, within the first year, they step back and they step out of it because it's too hard. So what's the answer to too hard? The answer to too hard is being able to have a support system that will make a difference to them to encourage them. So if you think about, it's the front door of people saying, yes, I'm open and willing to be a foster parent or an adoptive parent. And then those foster parents within a year later are stepping out. How do we shut the back door so that in fact they're able to continue? And that will lead us into the question of support and the wraparound grandparenting issues. But it's just an absolute shame. So let's just go review those numbers again. We've got 115,000 children that are in group homes that need to be either fostered or adopted. We have 395,000 churches in this country. If each church just found one family that would adopt, and then three seniors that would come around, three senior couples or a combination of individuals and couples would come around to support them. And we can talk about what does that support look like and support them so that in fact they would continue with that process. The church could solve the children's problem. And when we think about what Jesus told us to do, he talked about two things, widows and orphans. Hello. Here we are, 2023, going into 2024, and we have those opportunities that are available to us.
So let's just, before we go to the break, give me an example of what you're talking about, this wraparound grandparenting. What you've said you mean is that somebody in the church decides they're going to enter into the foster system and they're going to become a foster parent. And then you're asking couples to come alongside of them to help them with that process. What do you mean?
The needs that they have, the pressures that they endure in the process, depending upon the situation of the age and the circumstance of the child that they're fostering, is that you have emotional needs and you have physical needs and you have spiritual needs. And so these foster parents are being pulled on every side for what to do. So as a wraparound grandparent or part of a wraparound grandparenting team, to be able to come alongside, it may be just to give them a respite for a night so that the foster parents can go out on a date. It may be taking the kids to their soccer game. It may be showing up at the soccer game and cheering. It may be helping a kid who's having a hard time because of dyslexia or other reasons with their schoolwork, and spending an hour a week helping them to understand how to read or how to do basic math. There's this whole variety of needs. And as seniors that have had children, we know the variety of needs. And at this point, we can step in to be a resource and to be a relief and to be an encouragement that will then keep those foster parents engaged in the process and will make a difference for the kids. And when all is said and done, when they leave our homes that they have been exposed to the love of Jesus.
Mm. Oh, what a great summary. When we come back, we're going to hear a little bit from Brad Rhoads from Grace Marriage about his perspective on this. And then in the final segment, Bruce, I'd love it if you can, I don't know, maybe you've got a story of a family that has actually done this or a church that's actually started this. And we want to dig deeper into how can we help a church get started with a Wraparound Grandparenting program. You're listening to I Retire for Him. We'll be right back.
Recreating Retirement is an interactive small group study helping you to move from nothing to what's next. You can join us on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. East Coast time on Facebook Live. Our goal for this study is to provide a group setting for interaction and new ideas while leading you through a first step in your journey from retirement to reformation. Here's the big idea. During the next 5 years, 5,000 small groups will experience this journey of discovery in churches and faith-based organizations across the country. Is your church a place where recreating retirement needs to be planted? Join us online to experience the study or prepare to lead a small group at your church or ministry. Email us at contact@retirementreformation.org or go to our website at retirementreformation.org. That's retirementreformation.org.
Hey, welcome back to I Retire for Him. And as we do in every second segment of every podcast, Bruce, you always bring on a special guest that's got something really cool to share with our audience today. Bruce, who do you have for us today?
Well, I've got a man that has become a friend here in the last few months. And so one of the things that we know about the retirement years is that finding meaning and purpose is the goal, and that there are so many that live in lives of disappointment. Those disappointments play themselves out in a multiple of ways. One of them is in broken marriages. And so my friend Brad gives leadership to an organization called Grace Marriage. And they just do a fantastic job of knitting back together and helping couples to be able to understand how to find meaning and purpose in their relationships. Well, today we're talking about finding meaning and purpose in activity together to talk about wraparound grandparenting. So first of all, first question for you, Brad, my friend. Give us just a brief overview of Grace Marriage and how, in fact, that plays itself out amongst the senior members of our society.
Yeah, well, what we do is we equip couples and churches with an intentional strategy to grow and enjoy marriage. So you just don't fall in this stagnant, it is what it is state that we can tolerate, but you grow in enjoyment, support grace, and God gets more and more glory through your marriage. Stagnancy leads to death, and frankly, it's pretty boring. So what we do is we help couples do well in marriage, and we equip local churches with marriage ministries to disciple couples. And we found couples at all ages, including seniors, their marriages come alive when they actually talk together and say, how can we grow in enjoyment of one another? How can we be intentional in this thing? And let's make it more than just till death do us part. Let's grow till death do us part.
One of the processes of growing, as you and I have talked in any number of times and are looking for ways to be able to integrate the messaging of Grace Marriage and Retirement Reformation, is in fact then that in that marriage relationship, finding meaningful activities that will bring them together. One of the things that we are addressing, and particularly in this podcast, is bringing together a number, maybe 3 couples, but each one individually, to be a wraparound grandparent to support the families that are fostering and to support them so that, in fact, after a year, they don't back out of it, but they do it. And so here we have an example of how couples can come together and overcome both loneliness as well as lack of meaning and purpose. What do you think about that approach to being part of the action plan for a couple that is saying, hey, we need to step into something more and something new?
Yeah, I think it's great. And when you do something purposefully together as a couple, it makes a difference. It makes a difference for the kingdom and you individually and you in your marriage. So, I mean, when you work together in something, I mean, Scripture says marriage, it's a mystery of oneness. And when you connect emotionally and physically and in service and And whatever it is, it just creates a more beautiful union that hopefully draws people to the kingdom.
We talked about in one of the documents that we're working on together, we say in marriage, the day-to-day realities of life can lead couples to settle into routines where the focus on nurturing the relationship takes a backseat to other obligations, such as career demands or raising children. Here's an opportunity to break out of those routines and into something, even if it's just an hour a week, that in fact you can bring your skills and compassion to another couple. What would you think would be the impact on the marriage of a foster family, all the challenges they're going through, to have a senior support network coming alongside of them?
Well, it could be extremely significant, especially if the senior support network is modeling an amazing marriages. One of our big challenges now is our younger generation looks at our older generation and thinks marriage is just boring. I mean, I just look at it, it's like, why would I want that? Maybe I'll get old and bored someday too. So no, well, we want one, live out an attractional marriage. We're like, I want to be married, just watching how beautiful it is among our senior couples. And then two, when you live out that marriage, you're able to impart what you're living out into younger generation that might be fostering. And the best way to have a fostering situation break down is the marriage to break down under it. So the more you solidify that marriage, the more effective the fostering is going to be. And you have to first solidify by example, and then you be able to solidify by encouragement, by helping them live life out well such that they can foster well.
Well, and typically those of us in our senior years have been parents, and so we've known the things we've done well and perhaps some of the things we've not done well. That as we come alongside of these foster parents, we can both nurture and mentor them at the same time while we're reaching out and perhaps playing a key role in helping the foster kids to, learn how to do math or learn how to read or enjoy a weekend or a day at the local zoo. So finding meaning and purpose and combating loneliness are key issues that we've talked about. Any other thoughts that come to you, Brad, about the marital relationships, and then as it impacts the fostering and adoption activities that are so necessary for the church to address, and in so many cases they are not.
Yeah, there's several thoughts. I mean, life is really difficult, and the older you get, the more you realize it. I mean, you just see more and more tragedy, more and more difficulty. And when you're younger, you're a little naive to it. My wife said if I ever write a book, it'll be called Disenchanted, to Walk in My Broken Slippers. Just everything doesn't work out like you would want it to. And so I would just say when folks that have been down the road say, hey, this is really hard and it's really normal. You're having challenges, it's really normal. I think Satan tries to isolate us and make us feel like just failures. Like, man, if you were just better, everything around you wouldn't be crumbling. And I think when we've had people in Grace Marriage, they'll say the thing that helps me most is listening to the problems of others, because I realize that, our life's difficult, but so is everybody else's. And what I'm going through is more normative. And two is to give hope to the younger generation in marriage. I mean, right now there's just very little hope for marriage, but a lot of the reason there's little hope for marriage is our senior marriages just aren't attractional. I mean, it just looks like two grouchy old people watching CNN on a couch. I mean, and that's not what it was intended. I mean, it's like live an adventure, a life of impact, a cool journey full of grace and love, and laying down your life for other people. Like, well, there's nothing cooler than marriage. Why do you say that? Well, I watch it grow over time, and our most beautiful marriages are our most mature marriages. And, unfortunately, most senior marriages don't have a real strategy for growth, but God's never been a God of a norm we can tolerate. He is a God of growth, a God of beauty, and a God of creativity. And when you inject that into your marriage, not only is your life better and more fun, but it's more impactful.
Your life is better, more fun, and more impactful. With that powerful thought, Brad, thank you so much for your insights today and spending just a few moments with us. We'll look forward to many more opportunities to explore this and other topics together, because I just really appreciate you, how you think, and what you bring to the kingdom.
Well, it goes both ways. Thanks, Bruce.
Hey, Brad, if people want to get a hold of Grace Marriage, where do they find you online?
Go to gracemarriage.com and please go to your local church and say, our church has to disciple and shepherd marriages, and we'll help them do it.
Amen to that. You would listen to I Retire for Him. We'll be right back.
Our work on this earth doesn't end when the paycheck stops. God calls us to be faithful for a lifetime. Whether you're looking forward to retirement or you're already there, our all-small group study, Recreating Retirement, will help you understand, engage, and activate what God has for you in this fourth quarter of life. Join Retirement Reformation founder Bruce Bruinsma as you consider your past, strengths, spiritual gifts, and your passions, and how they all come together as the call God has for you in these years. Connect with us on our online community group at facebook.com/Retirement Reformation, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern, or if you'd like to bring Recreating Retirement to your church, email us at contactus@retirementreformation.org. Are you ready to start your life-changing journey today?
Hey, welcome back to I Retire for Him as we talk about Wraparound Grandparenting, the first in a series of 3 podcasts dedicated to transforming the foster care and adoption system here in the United States of America. Bruce, I told you I really was looking for a story that you could tell us of a church that has started this or a family that has started this and has seen this work. Go ahead.
Well, let me just be very, very personal. More than that now. 35 years ago, when our second child was born, Brent, who's a special needs child. And so Judy and I, in our conversations because we had always planned that we were going to have 4 children. And so here our second child was special needs, and that was a whole new environment, and we didn't know what to expect. And so we said, well, maybe we better pause for a little bit to see what it's going to mean to be able to support Brent. And so after about a year and a half or so, and we could understand that, yes, we could support Brent, Judy came to me and said, Bruce, we're ready to expand our family again. I said, nah, I'm not sure that's what we need to do. And so we talked about that. Judy was a little disappointed, but later that week, she was at the mall. For those of you who are listening, you may remember what malls are like. And she was at the mall, and there was a table there from the Oregon, which is where we lived at that point in time, Health and Human Services Department, talking about foster kids. And she picked up the material and brought it home. And she said to me, I don't know if this is the answer or not, but here's some information on fostering. I said, what's that? She said, here, read it. And so we read that and determining what to do. And I said to her, I said, I think that's what God is calling us to do. So we went through they had to make sure that we were a safe family, and we went through the training and all the kind of stuff. So now we're a couple of months later, and we're ready to have our first foster children. And so we say to the caseworker that our kids at that time were 5 and 6. And we said we'd like someone who's not older than 7 and not younger than 5, and we'd like 1. They said, okay. 2 days later, the doorbell rings, and there's the caseworker with a 4 and a 5-year-old brother and sister, crying, and they had found them in dumpsters looking for food because their mother had abandoned them. So here we are, not 1, but 2, and of a little different age, and there they are. Little boy is the younger one, and Joey, and he's totally bewildered. And his sister is just crying her eyes out. And our daughter Beth, who was 6 and a half, almost 7 at that point in time, runs and gets a doll and tries to console her. At any rate, they come and become part of our family. And so we had a fostering relationship because in the state of Oregon, at that point in time, I want to talk about a dumb rule. foster parents could not adopt the kids that they were fostering. That's just stupid. It's changed since then, but that was just dumb. And so we experienced 10 years with Joey and Shelley. They became part of our family. And I've got lots and lots of stories about that. But as Judy and I thought back upon those times, there were other times when we brought one additional girl into our home when she was about 13. We had a brother and sister at another point in time. Joey and Shelley, the 4 and the 5-year-old, we had a 10-year relationship with them. The other two were much more difficult. And as we thought back about those times and said, I wish there was other couples or other resources that could have helped us to understand them better. Maybe we'd have been better foster parents and we would have had longer-term relationships with them also. So we have that experience in being foster parents, and it was a very positive one with Joey and Shelley in spite of all the challenges. Well, go forward now to current times. And as God does it, when he wants to get your attention, he brings in front of you opportunities that you never thought about. And so over the last year, all this issues of fostering have been brought to our attention in 100 different ways. Not 100 different ways, but probably 10 different ways, including a sermon on Sunday that I'm going to post up on our website by our youth pastor who is a foster parent and just nailed the information. So look for that. His name is Peyton Rogers, and he just had an unbelievable sermon on Sunday on this issue. So what we learned in more recent times was that, if in fact this idea of wraparound grandparenting of a support base can come together, that we can make a difference. And here's the bottom line, is that our life group on Sunday committed to being the resource center for our church for wraparound grandparenting. And so there's a whole story for you that goes back 35, 40 years and is as recent as this Sunday.
When you look at the benefits to the wraparound grandparents, I mean, obviously there's a benefit to the foster parents because they're going to get help and relief because they need a break because it's hard. All 3 of our kids are involved in the foster system and it's hard. When you look at the benefit to the grandparents, the wraparound grandparents, what do you see, Bruce?
What I see is this: I see community, and that's the reason why we say we believe that it's a group of 3, either couples or singles and couples, but a community of at least 3 that come together so that together they are supporting that foster. And the reason for that is that each one of those members of that small support community will have different skill sets, will have different capacities, will have different insights. And for them to be able to come together, also for them to be able to come together as a group and share their experiences, it also addresses the issue of loneliness, which we've talked often on this area for seniors. And so the benefits for the foster parents, but I think there's significant benefits for the wraparound grandparents also.
I love that. It addresses the loneliness thing. When you give purpose for those days that just seem kind of long, as a wraparound grandparent, you can go have lunch with the kids at school. You can pick them up after school. You can, take care of them while mom and dad, foster mom and dad or adopted mom and dad are, still at work. I mean, there's so many different things. I mean, the benefits really are, it's an example of exactly what God has done with us as adopted children. What a phenomenal program. Bruce, as we get into this series, I want to get deeper because we really want to talk about how can we get churches to get this started. But as I want to end today with, where can we send people to get more information about wraparound grandparenting? Do we have a place we could send them?
We absolutely do. Matt, if you come to the retirementreformation.org, look under resources, it'll talk about wraparound parenting. We've given this introduction a name, and it's called The Legacy of Love. And I love that name, The Legacy of Love. And when you go there, you can connect to a website that we've created that has information on it. On that website, you will be able to experience what does it mean to be a foster parent and what does it mean to be a wraparound grandparent. And so there's the introduction for a couple or individuals into how do I step in to explore whether God is calling me to be part of this movement, to be part of this answer to a problem that the church needs to address.
Wraparound Grandparenting coming to a church near you. In fact, why don't you bring it to your church?
Yes.
Anytime soon. We really need your help. The foster kids in America need your help, and adoptive parents in America need your help. Thank you, Bruce, for bringing Wraparound Grandparenting. Great introduction to this. Stay tuned for a podcast release in a couple weeks for more on Wraparound Grandparenting, foster grandparenting, so many different things. You've been listening to I Retire for Him, the voice and resource of the Retirement Reformation, with your host, Jim Brangenberg, and of course, the founder of the Retirement Reformation, Bruce Brynsma. We're Christ followers, journeying from retirement to reformation, so we can ultimately say, I retire
for Him.
Thanks for listening to I Retire for Him, with your hosts, Jim and Martha Brangenberg, and Retirement Reformation founder, Bruce Brynsma. I Retire for Him is the mouthpiece of the Retirement Reformation. Most Christians tend to follow the world's pattern of rest and self-pampering during retirement. However, in your retirement, you can be focused on God's unique call to love, serve, and help others. This can be your best season of life if you take advantage of a life's worth of knowledge and experience and combine it with a greater freedom of time and money and invest it all in the generations both preceding and following you. The Retirement Reformation is encouraging Christians to find and follow God's call in all seasons and aspects of life, especially in retirement. Take time to sign the manifesto at retirementreformation.org and explore the wealth of resources available on our site. Join this movement of God and journey from retirement to reformation so you can say, I retire for Him. Go to retirementreformation.org.